chapter 21, verse 22. Okay, next episode in this chapter. At that time, Abimelech and Pichol, the commander of his army, said to Abram, God is with you in all that you do. So again, we meet Abimelech here, Abba, father, Melech, king. So it's like father is my king. So here we see some other problem. Okay, as miracles happen and God fulfills His word, other problems more often than not arose. When you think that, oh, at last, now all these problems are solved and I can have a restful time, something else happens. Okay, I know it very well. I find it a lot of times in my life. You pray for something, God answers your prayer, and I think, oh, wow, great, now everything will kind of go smoothly, maybe even for a week or so. But it never lasts that very long. Always something different that comes up, another problem, and it feels that it's always solve one, opens another problem kind of idea. And this is what happens here now. They have the son, but where before they had great relationship with Abimelech, now all of a sudden here Abimelech comes with his commander of the army. That doesn't sound good. But when he arrives, he said, God is with you in all that you do. And so clearly, at least with these words, it sounds not too bad. But it doesn't look so good, but it sounds not too bad. Verse 23. Now therefore swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me, or with my descendants, or with my posterity. But as I have dealt kindly with you, so you will deal with me, and with the land where you have sojourned. Okay, so what is Abimelech trying to do here? We saw what God is doing for Abram, and now actually Abram can rest assured that all is good. Abimelech is not here to create with his commander and army to create a problem, start a war, anything like that. Right? He's actually here to make a covenant that they won't attack each other, that they will live in peace with each other, which they are going to do here. And as well with the descendants. It's important, the descendants part here. Why, again, is that important? Because Moses is explaining to the people while they're moving through the desert why they need to leave and not attack the descendants of Abimelech. Right? Because Abram made a covenant with Abimelech that they won't do it. So this is a justification from Moses' side, explaining to the people why certain people like Canaan, yes, we need to attack them. Yes, why the Moabites and the Ammonites are a problem. Yes, why the Edomites are, the Edomites and Ammonites are a problem. Why the Moabites are the Edomites are a problem. Why the Moabites and the Ammonites are a problem. We see the explanation of all of this. Why those people, the sin are so big because the people have been living there so long. Okay, we see all of this, and we see in this case the explanation of why we need to leave the children, the descendants of Abimelech alone, because we have a covenant with them. We swore, Abram swore that he won't attack. They made this covenant. Verse 24. And Abram said, I will swear. So, yes, he did. He made the covenant. He said he will swear. So again, people, we're going there. We leave the descendants of Abimelech alone because Abram gave his word. I wish Christians were more stronger in keeping their word. Christians are so weak in keeping their word, which is very sad. I find it very sad because it makes you not be able to trust other people because you can't really, they break their word to you, and it makes you doubt them, and that's not good for relationships, right? And so these people, yeah, they kept their word. So be that a lesson to you as well as a Christian. We need to be a witness to the world and keep our words. Yes, yes, no, no. As Jesus said. Verse 25. When Abram reproved Abimelech about the well of water that Abimelech's servants had seized, okay, so what we see here now, something happened where these servants of Abimelech took wells from Abram, which what belonged to him, and Abram is going to raise this question with him. So the answer of Abimelech we see in verse 26. Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this thing. You did not tell me, and I've not heard of it until today. Okay, so Abimelech's like, what are you speaking about, Abram? You never told me about this. I've never heard about this. Now, maybe, it's not if you're the king of the country and people take wells of other people, then especially someone like Abraham, you kind of need to hear about it. So maybe Abimelech didn't know everything what's going on in his country, but on the other hand, man, you can't know everything that's going on. And Abram could have informed Abimelech when it happened. Right? So it's not as to say that Abimelech is justifying himself here, right? But he has a right, in a certain sense, to justify himself. Abram could have told him. Abram should have told him. Right? And so on the one hand, that's true. But on the other hand, it is his country. You ought to know. So like both kind of. So he's saying, yes, Abram, you are guilty. You didn't tell me. And yes, I didn't know, so I'm kind of guilty as well, because it's my country. I ought to know. I have responsibility. Okay? Right? So, we as well need to take responsibility when we need to take responsibility, and not always push it, and admit to our mistakes as well. Okay, like Abimelech, but at the same time he is rightfully so defending himself too. So when Christians or people do something wrong to you, the best is not to just keep it for yourself and let it slip kind of idea, and then one day when you're angry at them, then you throw it all years of displeasure out at them. No, the right thing to do, which Abram ought to have done, was to go to him, and because he already had a relationship with Abimelech, as we've seen in the previous chapter, he ought to have gone to him and told him. Right? He didn't. So let that be as well something in your Christian life that you practice. When people do something wrong, or you might just plain misunderstand them, the best thing, the right thing to do is not to leave it for later, but to make peace with your brother, to ask him, right? That's what New Testament says, to ask him, so why did you do this? What does this mean? This happened. Please, can we talk about it? Explain. Don't go to bed angry, right? That is the biblical way of doing things. But our human way of doing things is, no, we don't want people to lose faith, especially in this part of the world. We don't want people to lose faith, so we will lie to people. We will just try and not make peace with people. We don't care about going to bed angry or stuff like that. Right? This is not how it's supposed to be done. And this is unlikely what Abram did do. So Abimelech was right in that Abram ought to have told him. But then at the same time, he admits his mistake as well of not knowing. Because he's a king, he has responsibility, he ought to have known. Verse 27. So Abram took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a covenant. Right? So, Abram, now from his side, okay, he takes and he makes the covenant. So they are on equal level, he is giving. Not just Abimelech like before, he is now giving. And they made this covenant. Right? So since they made the covenant, therefore we are traveling through the desert, don't kill Abimelech's descendants. Verse 28. Abram set 7 ewe lambs of the flock apart. 7, right, we know by now, number of days in a week, number of perfection. 29. And Abimelech said to Abram, what's the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs that you have set apart? So Abimelech's like, okay, what? No, not everybody understands the concept of 7, right? He's from a different nation, and so why 7? What do you mean by this, by the 7? What is your meaning? Why 7? Right? We know it's a perfect number. We know, so what he's trying to show is that he will keep his word by this number. Okay, verse 30. He said, these 7 ewe lambs you will take from my hand, that this may be a witness for me that I did this well. So what he is then trying to show with this ultimately is that this is not just for us making the covenant, but this is as well then proof of, by me giving you 7, the perfect number of, in making this covenant as well, it shows that I am in the right here concerning this wealth. You agree to, you take them, you agree to the fact that this is my well. It belongs to me. Okay, now this is the utmost importance. If you don't have water, you can't have produce down there. You have water, you have food. If you're in a desert, you don't have water where it doesn't rain, or it's in dry places and it doesn't rain, you don't have water, you don't have a well, especially in that part of the world where they were, in the southern part, you die. You don't have food. So it's important, and whose well it is utmost important. So that means other people can't come, the servants can't come next time. Next time they come, Abraham can say, but Abimelech took those 7 lambs. He, with that said, it belongs to me. So therefore, hands off, this is mine. Verse 31. Therefore that place was called Beersheba, because there both of them swore an oath. Okay, so it's just what it means. They call the name of, normally after something that happened at the place, they call the name of that place after what happened there. Now in this case, the swearing of an oath. Verse 32. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech and Pichol, the commander of his army, rose up and returned to the land of the Philistines. Okay, so again, years later, they hear the name Beersheba. They know where Beersheba is. We don't know for sure. They knew, they saw, they understood. This is what happened here. Here, straight in front of their face, is a place. It has that name. This is what the name means. So therefore, we have a covenant with Abimelech's descendants. We don't touch them. This is what Moses showing them. God through Moses showing them. God keeps his word again in this way, by making sure that Moses and the Israelites will keep their side, their word, as Abraham promised. So they made a covenant, they agreed that this is Abraham's, they left. All in peace, peace being made, no more problems. They're not treated as equals. Why did Abimelech treat Abraham as equal? Because he knew that God is with him. He didn't win to go up against Abraham, but because he saw God is with Abraham. God was his protector. You know, it's not like, it's a kind of maybe a little bit like the mafia. You know, they're your protector. Pay us money, we'll protect you from other mafia groups, kind of idea, right? But now in this case, God is not a mafia, right? God is just, and God is doing it for the right reasons, okay? And God is then showing his protection, and Abimelech understood that. You don't go against God. So he treated him, Abram therefore, as equal. And they returned to the land of the Philistines. I mean, they returned home. Abram, verse 33. Abram planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. Right, so later on, the planting of trees is going to lead to a lot of sin. Okay, it's going to lead to people worshipping false idols. But in this case, Abram is planting a tree, doing the right thing. He's doing it as a sign of this covenant. As a sign that this is what we did here, this tree. Because a tree outlasts us. I mean, these trees standing here, they're a lot older than me. And I will be long dead before these trees are dead. Right? And so if you want to, if reincarnation was true, which it's not, then come back as a tree because you live a lot longer. Kind of. But anyhow, yeah, so this is a sign that will outlast. It will outlast a bunch of rocks on top of each other. Bunch of rocks, look at, there are rocks and buildings around us, but they're overgrown by grass and they're destroyed by nature ultimately. Okay, they quickly will destroy rocks a lot faster than a tree is destroyed. So he did the right thing, and this was still not sin in God's eyes. Otherwise, God would have done something about this. And we know by now that Abram is at this stage in his life where he has full trust in God. His actions show that the final action of Isaac is still soon going to happen, right? But we clearly see, therefore, that Abram is doing the right thing. God's not judging him for him. So him planting this tree and is then the right thing to do. But later on, it's going to be used as worship of false idols. They're going to plant trees, cut down the trees. They will worship these idols then that they make from these trees, or like up there at the pagoda, there's a holy tree which they were watering, right? And now this is a holy tree, and so they're worshipping the tree. You find it in China sometimes, even here in Myanmar, in Yangon, and Bangkok as well, where they have holy trees. And sometimes the road, they built a tar road going around this tree because they didn't want to cut down the tree. Okay, so in that case, it's not right. But that's not how it always was. Just in a side note here, I know Christians who are totally against, say, for example, a Christmas tree in the house, because they say this is a symbol of, like how the people used it. They used it for the wrong reasons. Like trees are used here as holy trees, which they like bow to and nearly worship, and building pagodas next to it, so as for the tree's sake kind of idea, right? So yes, it's wrong. But remember, before that, that tree was right. Like in this case, there's nothing wrong with Abram planting a tree and using it as a sign of the covenant in this case. But not covenant with God, but the covenant he made with Melchizedek. Okay? So before the tree was wrongly used, it was rightly used. And remember always that God made the tree. So that tree that's now worshipped, the tree is not at fault. We are at fault. So it's not a question of you. So you, as a Christian, having a Christmas tree or something like that, that does not make you wrong in having a Christmas tree. Put a star in. If you're going to worship that Christmas tree, right, stop, nonsense, that's wrong. Right? But if just in a northern hemisphere it's white, and it's nice to see, praise God, some green, to just get a feeling of life might return some other time. I mean, it gives hope. So, and that's what Christ does. So there's nothing wrong there. God made all trees, right? It's we who abuse the tree. The problem is not the tree. The problem is not the Christmas tree. The problem is us that can abuse that Christmas tree, or whichever other tree, or whichever other thing. That is the problem. We are the problem again. So it's so easy to say, Christmas tree, evil, get out. While you're sinning on so many other levels. The problem is not the Christmas tree. You are the problem. The problem starts here. And only Christ can fix this. Right? So please remember that. Don't miss the forest for the tree. Your sins are the problem. Verse 34. And Abram sojourned many days in the land of the Philistines. Okay, so Abram is still, we don't know exactly why, whatever, right? The reason is not stating why, but this is why Abimelech and Pickle came, and they went back to the capital, and Abram stayed. They have this covenant. They won't attack each other. They in the future as well, and the people themselves at that stage, they were sojourning. Moses and the people were sojourning in that region still. So while we are here, there's Abimelech's people. We're not going to attack them. We are sojourning here. That looks back to Abram. That looks back to this. And this gives justification as well for them being there. And the justification of why these people we don't attack.